And everybody, it is Friday, May 1st. Welcome to Coffee with Todd. Good to have you on. I'm excited that all of our platforms are able to watch these broadcasts at one time. It's super, super cool that we have a live audience connected 6 or 7 different ways, and grateful that you're spending a little bit of time every day with Coffee with Todd. As I promised you, we're going to do this for the entire month of May. We did a couple last 2 days of April just to get everything kind of going. And so welcome to May 1st. Welcome to Motivation May. Welcome to the best of the best, learning, growing, and getting better. I want to thank you for joining. I also want you to know that it's really, really cool for you to be able to share this invite with any of your clients. If you're a lender, any of your real estate agents, if you are a real estate agent, your lending partner, any leaders with your team, get as many people on this as possible, because all we're going to do is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we're going to do some quick hits around truth and things to pay attention to, all market moving ideas. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to do an interview with somebody who is a top performer in lending, real estate, or in the world. So here's what I want to talk about today. I have good news, yes, and I have bad news, right? And here's what's interesting about that comment. The good news is that there's some good news. The bad news is there is some bad news. And what you and I have to decide is we have to decide what news is the news that we want to pay attention to. This is going to translate by the time I'm done into one key action plan, but I want to make a point as we kind of jump into this and educate at the same time. I have a feed from Apple News, and I just got this feed about 10 minutes before I came on, and it says, expert report predicts up to 2 more years of the pandemic misery. So we think about that. We think about a pandemic misery, and we have to make a choice on whether or not we're going to let that news impact us, right? This is from Bloomberg, and this was produced on April 10th, and the headline of this news says, another US-wide housing slump is coming. And then underneath in the small print, it says the coronavirus pandemic will cause many cash-strapped Americans to sell their homes, flooding the market with excess supply. So you look at that heading and you start to think interesting. And then here's just the first paragraph. A U.S. housing crisis is coming, and although it won't be anything like the last one, that won't make it any less painful. Even though there has been no rampant speculation or subprime mortgage fraud, housing is still overvalued. And the dearth of inventory that's plagued the current cycle will reverse in violent fashion once the worst of the virus has passed, as financially strapped homeowners seek to raise cash. As an affordability collapses with fewer buyers eligible to buy a home, the only way to rectify the mismatch between supply and demand will be via declining prices. So that's either good news, bad news, it's news. It's all about the filter that you have to see what you see in the news. So again, this was April 10th. This is another article that came out April 29th, completely different source. This is from Housing Market. And the headline says, the U.S. housing market just got some fiercely bullish news. Okay, so April 10th, housing slump is coming. April 29th, the U.S. housing market gets some fiercely bullish news. And just a couple of highlights with today's pending home sales reading was much worse than expected. New data shows that demand has already begun to recover from an early April plunge. And here we are, the first day of May, and we're already recovering from an early April plunge. Mortgage demand spikes 12%. In New York City, mortgage demand in the last 7 days spiked 13.5%. Go figure, one of the toughest cities in America hit by the coronavirus, and mortgage demand in that city is up 13.5% in the last week. And I can go through this. It's interesting. The 10 largest states by application volume had increases in purchase activity, which is really what I want to talk about today, which is potentially a sign of the start of an upturn in the pandemic-delayed spring home buying season. As the coronavirus lockdown restrictions slowly ease in various markets, and this is from the Mortgage Bankers Association of America. NAR, National Association Realtors, for our agents on the session this morning. The autumn months will be better than the typical autumn or winter months compared to the season factors. The second half of the year should be running better than the first half, but we are missing out on the spring buying season. So you sit here and you really just have to reconcile that, good news is good news and bad news is bad news, and the news is the news, and you've got to really decide how you create your own news. I remember when I was brand new in the lending industry, interest rates were super high, like prime was 21%. Financing interest rates on FHA and VA and conventional loans was in the 17, 18%. I remember unemployment was at 13%. Today, you can see what it's at with the coronavirus impact, with almost 30 million Americans unemployed. Consumer confidence was at an all-time low, and right now we're seeing a lot of trend lines in personal finance confidence, with a lot of people watching their 401ks get hit, even watching maybe some of the equity value in their home getting hit, and sadly maybe unemployed themselves, or going from a 2-income family to a 1, or a 1-income family to a none. So there's a lot of news, right? And the interesting thing about that market is I had somebody tell me and here's the teaching point. If you get nothing else, get this teaching point. It is never the market you're in. It is never the market I'm in that dictates our success. It is how we are in that market. And I believe that to be true. So when I first started doing loans, the market was horrible. The sky was falling. Nobody was going to buy. Nobody was going to sell. And I chose an attitude. And I chose an attitude of positivity. Martin Seligman, who is a friend of mine, who's a researcher at the University of Pennsylvania, he studies happiness and optimism. And he says no matter what market anybody's in, if they choose optimism, if they choose positivity, they will outperform somebody who is in that negative state of mind by at least 2 to 1, as high as 3 to 1. Okay, so that is 100% better, or maybe even 150% better. You think about that and you go, so attitude, right? It's attitude about the market. And then when you think about happiness and joy, and you think about, we're going through this time in our business right now where you got to find that, right? You got to find the happiness and joy. And so all I did is I decided that I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be joyful in a market where everybody else thinks stuff isn't happening, that it's going to tank, and you either make things happen or you sit back and you watch things happen. And so I got a button made up, and the button said, rumor has it we're in a recession. I'm not participating. And what that did is it signaled a message to every home buyer I talked to, every real estate agent I talked to, every builder I talked to. It signaled a message that, you know what, we're going to choose. We're going to choose our mindset. So here's what I want to tell you to do. You all know of the Small Business Administration. You all know about this PPP kind of funding that has had 2 blocks of funding approved by the U.S. government. Payroll Protection Plan is what it's about. It's designed to help small businesses have some payroll coverage for 4 to 8 weeks to keep their businesses going during this time. There's another PPP, which is the PPP I'm going to give you, and it's Partnerships Preparation Plan. What is the partnerships that you need? What is that preparation plan for the times we're in right now? So we do know that it's not a matter of if this thing is going to reorient itself, it's just a matter of when. So that's going to be happening. So if you're a lender today, what is your PPP? What is the Partnership Preparation Protection Plan, if you will, that you're going to have? And what you're doing in the midst of a refinance market is super important as it relates to the purchase market. And so I would use technologies like Brad Hacker spoke about yesterday on our interview, of using either Zoom sessions, pre-recorded video, or slide dial broadcasts. And I'd be messaging my entire database, and I would be asking for a quick connection with my database, just a lot of one-on-one appointments about real estate plans for the next 1 to 5 years. Some are going to stay, some are going to sell, some are going to move down, some are going to move up, some are going to want to invest. And so if you spread your net into your database, which you've already done business with, right? We're just going to get forward thinking about preparing. Prospecting is not about what we do today that manifests itself today as a deal. Prospecting is about what we've done yesterday or the day before or last week or last month to make today rich with prospecting opportunities. So if I'm a lender, I'm doing that. I'm also going to try to segment my database and find out who's the top 10% of influencers in my database, because that's the group I want to really go after, because they can influence more and more and more people. And any one of your agent partners is going to love you doing this, because you're going to be able to generate buyer and seller interest that in the form of a referral back to your agent partners is going to be strong. If you're an agent today, what the best agents are doing is they're doing the same thing, and they're doing a real estate review with their database, whether it's a seller or a buyer that they've done business with in the last 4, 5, 6 years. There's this outbound video to everybody, okay, or a email with a link to everybody, or a slide out broadcast to everybody, 60, 90, 120 seconds, and you're going to stimulate inbound calls. And the stimulation of the inbound calls with your lender makes all kinds of sense, because the buyers and sellers in your agent database are going to do something at some point in the future. We just don't know when. One of the best things an agent can do is begin to have those potential buyer pools talk with their lending partner, so we can get everybody ready to go, optimize their purchase price, and make sure that we're not showing as many properties, showing less that matter most, that are obviously going to be the type of properties that that buyer is going to want to have. So the message is, it doesn't matter what the market is. What matters, more important than anything else, is how you're in the market. And I can tell you that people that get overwhelmed with bad news do not prospect, and they do not move the needle down the field. Those that embrace the market as opportunity, and a market that can do something good, and a market that can serve up any business that you want, those are the people that win, no matter what the market conditions are. So that's the message today. It's not the market, it's how you're in the market. Be in the market with value, be in the market with connection, be in the value with be in the market with technology, bring value to your database, bring preparation thinking in terms of what are your real estate dreams and goals for the next 1 to 5 years. On the lending side, everybody who is refinanced is going to buy at some point. Everybody who's buying right now is going to refinance at some point. Get the message out to your whole database so that you can be the go-to guy or the go-to gal that they're going to talk about. I got a question yesterday, and I told you guys, if you post questions over in the live comment section, I will answer them the following day. Daniel Burns had a question yesterday. The question was specifically, do you think lenders are creating a bottleneck? Here's what I know. I know that March, April, and May pipelines are probably some of the biggest pipelines that lenders have ever had. I can tell you right now that the challenge for any lender is a capacity challenge, and that is it, pure and simple. And so the lenders that are doing well are the lenders that are not over-promising, okay? They are over-delivering. They are not promising things that can't happen due to capacity. They are actually doing the opposite. They're being very honest and planning and pricing the right way so that the pipeline is not clogged. The other thing that this is forcing us to do is it's forcing us to return to a flight to quality, right? Because there's so much business happening right now that if we do it poorly, it further complicates that capacity issue. So I don't think any lender's intentionally creating a bottleneck. I just think the bottleneck's there because of the market. And I think that quality, and I think that the right promise, those two things alone will be the things that make us get through this well, okay? So we'll see you Monday, Coffee with Todd, and we have 2 massive interviews next Tuesday and Thursday. You're gonna love those. And again, every day for the month of May, Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock right here. See you Monday. Have a great weekend, and appreciate you guys logging in today. Share this with everybody you wanna make an impact in their life. Have a great weekend, rest, restore, and get recharged. Thanks.